welcome to yet another edition of your weekly international current affairs program, Globe Watch, from the Cameroon Radio Television with me, Charles Ebune. Next July this year, of course, the Commonwealth Africa Investment Forum takes place in London, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Such an event will be an occasion to cement the already existing good commercial ties between the Commonwealth and its member states, but more particularly to strengthen new bonds of partnership. The event will be organized by the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council, the business arm of the Commonwealth, an organization of roughly 2.5 billion people, regrouping 56 countries across all the geographical zones. And my guest today on Globe Watch is the Deputy Chair of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council, Hugo William George de Lord Swire. Thank you very much indeed and welcome to Cameroon.
It's my pleasure, thank you.
I understand that you are one of the key participants at the ongoing investment promotion agency of Cameroon's investment forum in Douala. Of what essence, of what value, of what significance is such an event to a touring organization like yours, which regroups nearly 2.5 billion people around the world?
Well, I think you've answered your own question there. I mean, the Commonwealth is an extraordinary, potent collection of countries, some in developing stages, some developed, right across the globe. And I'm delighted and honoured I've been asked to address the forum later on today. I was meant to speak at the beginning of the forum a couple of days ago, but unfortunately I was stuck in the House of Lords on parliamentary business. But I'm here at the invitation of the Cameroon Investment Council, and I'm delighted. This is my first trip ever to Cameroon, to Douala, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of my ideas later on today about how we can grow the economies of Commonwealth countries.
Nearly 95 companies are part of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council. In reality, this is a barrage of some of them that are of Cameroonian companies. I just wonder how such an event like the Cameroon Investment Forum, organized by the Promotion Investment Agency, which is of course one of your strategic partners, how is such an event important in opening new commercial windows?
Well, for a start, I think we have more than 95 strategic partners. We have more like about 140 or so right across the Commonwealth, some of whom are here. The Cameroon National Shippers Council are one of our oldest strategic partners, and we have our hub office for Cameroon, Togo and Gabon in their offices. We work very closely with the government of Cameroon too. You're right, we have a lot of members here. We would like to have more, and I would like to show my support and give my thanks for them later on today, as well as showing other companies within the region what more they can get out from joining our network, both for increasing inward investment. It works both ways. Increasing inward investment into their countries and also finding strategic partners and opportunities for them within the wider Commonwealth. So, for instance, I think Cameroon's biggest Commonwealth trading partner is either Malaysia or Indonesia. There are plenty of other countries within the Commonwealth who would like to do business with Cameroon and Togo and Gabon, and it's up to us to facilitate that.
You just talked about the Central Africa Regional Hub of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council, in whose headquarters were found here in Douala, located at the National Shippers Council of Cameroon, and it covers Cameroon, Gabon, and Togo. Of course, Togo and Gabon being the latest countries to join the Commonwealth. A few months ago, roughly 23, the chairman of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council, Lord Jonathan Peter Mallon, was here to inaugurate it. What assessment at the level of the organization do you make of the functionality of this regional hub?
Well, they're terribly important, and I think what is interesting in terms of the politics and the history of the Commonwealth was originally came out of the remains of the British Empire. It was the British Commonwealth, and that was in the post-war period. But since then, it's transformed into something radically different. And a lot of the recent countries that have come into the Commonwealth have no historic connection with the United Kingdom at all. A lot of them are Francophone countries, but they recognise that being part of this Commonwealth family provides huge opportunities, both politically and economically. And we have now hub offices across the Commonwealth, our organisation, in Nigeria, for instance, in Ghana, in West Africa, now in Nairobi. But we recognise that Africa is a hugely diverse but growing continent with plenty of opportunities, both for countries outside and companies outside the African continent to come and learn more and trade here, but also to grow the economies, both across Africa, within Africa, but also, as I said earlier, outside in the wider Commonwealth. And that's what we are. We are a facilitator. We are a business organisation. We stay away from the politics. We leave that to the Commonwealth Secretariat and the politicians of the national countries. We are only interested in making sure that the small companies of today can become the major big companies of tomorrow.
This is an area which was, of course, historically dominated by French-speaking companies, or if you like, companies from the Francophone portion of Africa, Gabon, Togo. I come back to my question. 23 or 24 months into it, have you seen an increase of companies, say, from the United Kingdom, from Malaysia, from Singapore, from Thailand, making inroads into this area?
Well, we see a lot of interest in Africa, of course.
Okay.
Everyone is concentrating on the continent now. But don't forget, we're coming out of the COVID period, which effectively froze international trade. People couldn't travel. And I think people are picking up now. Every 2 years, the Commonwealth meets as an organisation at something called the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. And actually later on this year, in the autumn, it's going to be in Samoa, hosted by Samoa, right across in the Pacific. And we, as our organisation, are mandated to run the business forum. And so we will be bringing companies from right across our membership to the Pacific to meet each other, to see what they can learn, and hopefully to do business. And I very much hope there will be companies coming with us from Togo, Gabon and Cameroon.
When you look at the Commonwealth presence in Africa, 19 out of the 56 Commonwealth countries are based in Africa. 7 of them are landlocked countries, which means that they don't have access to maritime services like the sea and others. What does the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council do specifically to serve some of their most disadvantaged member states in Africa?
Look, first of all, we believe that a rising tide lifts all ships. So therefore, to actually make sure that the domestic economies of Africa, wherever it is in Africa, are prospering means that people can see their lives there. That addresses all kinds of issues about quality of life, about sustainability, about the environment, but also about migration too, if people stay in their own places. Secondly, in terms of what are we doing, well, we can't redesign the network of shipping and roads across Africa. That's clearly beyond our capability and beyond our mandate. But we are very supportive, for instance, here, in supporting the ports, and I'm going down to the port tomorrow, the main port in Crtv, where we have been actively encouraging other companies from around the Commonwealth to come and invest. It seems to me that some of the ports in this country serve the landlocked countries of Africa, so the more they expand, the better
the Central African
in all those.
Yeah.
So the more their facilities improve, the better the facilities there are connecting those land-based countries to the ports, so as the export and import will increase.
The Commonwealth Trade and Investment Forum is one of your flagship programs, and the last edition was held in Dhaka, Bangladesh. What actually dominates such gatherings?
What dominates the country? Well, the reason to have it there.
What issues do you?
Well, I mean, Bangladesh is a case in point, and very relevant to this country. I mean, a huge amount of cotton, I believe, is exported from here to Bangladesh to make the products that everybody is wearing. Bangladesh is an astonishing place. I was in Dhaka myself a couple of years ago setting up this conference, and its GDP is growing exponentially year on year, and they're transforming from one sort of economy to another with the help of the international community. So again, you know, increasing the exports from this region to Bangladesh is good for this region. It's also good for Bangladesh. It's also good for those who buy the product from Bangladesh at the end of the chain. So it's a circular chain in which, if we get it right, everybody can prosper.
When you look at a majority of your roughly 2.5 billion people, a majority of them are young people, between 15 and 35 years, roughly 60% of them, their business environment is basically artificial intelligence, the complexities of climate change. When policymakers like you, who man the institutions, sit down to elaborate processes, take decisions, work out mechanisms for business and trading, do you take such elements of the fourth revolution into consideration, a digital experience, for example?
Well, I think we can look at it two ways. You can either be terrified of it, terrified of the technological advantages, technological changes out there, AI and so forth, and be very scared about how it's going to replace a lot of jobs. Or you can look another way and be positive and say, actually, this is going to make a lot of things easier, it's going to contribute significantly to productivity and therefore prosperity. And I think we have no choice. You can't disinvent something like AI. It's here with us. So we must all learn to work with it and to make it work for us, importantly. But there's absolutely no question about it. You're absolutely right. 1 in 3 of the world's population between 15 and 29 lives within the Commonwealth countries, some with very different standards of living. And there's a huge amount of work to be done there in basic healthcare, particularly in education, and things like that. And I think that that's where we can play an important part. But Africa, this is Africa's, people have been saying this for a long time. This is Africa's time. This really is Africa's time. Look at the economies of Africa and indeed North Africa. There's a real appetite within this country to work more closely together across Africa, but also to do things better. And I think it's a very exciting time to be an African.
Well, it's an exciting time to be an African. How do you leverage on that at the level of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council? Specifically, I'm looking at projects which are youth-oriented. Do they exist?
Well, they exist.
Do you have companies manned by young
Well, we do, because a lot of our companies...
When I look, for example, a list like this, do you
Well, we don't preach to our strategic partners as to what they do in terms of ESG and outreach, but a lot of those companies will do that, particularly with shareholders. They now have to do that to satisfy their shareholders. But let me give you an example of one of our main partners in East Africa, if I can just take you across to the other side of the continent, a bank called Equity Bank. A gentleman called Dr. James Mwangi, who runs that bank, is hugely ambitious for what they are trying to do in Central and East Africa, in the DRC, in Uganda and Tanzania, in Kenya itself, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of bringing big business there, in terms of improving communications, telecoms, all those things. And you know, we share that ambition. And we are working as closely as we can with him and his organisation to take companies from around the Commonwealth there to take part in this. Because, as I said at the beginning, a rising tide lifts all ships. If those economies of DRC, Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya can all benefit from that, then the spin-off effects right across the African continent and indeed further afield will be very obvious.
As I said at the beginning of our conversation, the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council will be holding the Africa Trade Summit in London mid-year this year. And this will be taking place within a well-defined context. The African Continental Free Trade Area has redefined the mechanisms of doing business with Africa. 1.5 billion people, a common market of roughly $3 trillion a year. At the level of the council, how are you people factoring this in when doing business with Africa today?
I think a lot of people don't know how to do business in different parts of Africa. Of course, it's very different. I mean, the point about the Commonwealth is, on the whole, it's based on a common language, common legal system. There's something called the Commonwealth Advantage, whereby, because of those things, it's more cost beneficial for one company in one Commonwealth country to trade with another one in a Commonwealth jurisdiction to a factor of about 21%. That's a significant saving. But equally, what we have within our Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council is a group of legal companies, which we call the Commonwealth Legal Network, of which we have some members here and indeed across Africa. And we are building that, so we will have recommended legal companies, part of us, across the Commonwealth. So if you are a company in, for instance, Canada, wanting to do business in Kenya, say, or here in Cameroon, you would have your first point of call would be to use one of our recommended legal partners, which would then show you how to avoid all the pitfalls. Because for a lot of companies, it's quite scary going into a new jurisdiction, not really understanding the market. You can choose the wrong partner, you can get it all wrong. I think if you're reassured by doing it within the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment family, that's a very positive thing.
In the moment the interview will come to an end, there is this much talked about the Commonwealth comparative advantage. You have La Francophonie, you have the Organization of the Americas, and the list can go on. What specifically can make the Commonwealth comparative advantage quite unique, quite different, good for business, as opposed to all other models which exist worldwide?
Well, I'm not here to knock the Francophonie grouping of countries.
And that is why I cited other regional or global geocultural
Yes, exactly.
groups.
So I would get into trouble at the kid, I'll say. But look, you will have noted that a lot of countries who are Francophonie
incidents, I can assure you, because Cameroon belongs to the Commonwealth. And
but a lot of Francophonie countries are coming into the Commonwealth. There's room for everyone. There's room for everyone. So all I can do is repeat that the Commonwealth advantage is because of international law, corporate law is based on English law, basically. The savings for companies across the Commonwealth trading with one another within that system give it an advantage, and English language as well, being a common legal language for corporate law, give an advantage of up to 21%. This is not our figure. This is an internationally recognized figure. It's difficult to look at anywhere else and say what other thing gives a company that kind of fiscal advantage when trading elsewhere. The answer is nothing. It is only this Commonwealth advantage. And I think we really need to drive that point home. You know, trading within the Commonwealth from one Commonwealth country to another gives you an immediate saving, and that is a significant figure.
My Lord, you have huge experience in government circles, in the private sector, and in leadership. Proud to your current function, you serve as British Minister of State for Europe and the Americas. You were the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, and you equally worked in the private sector for so many years. Probably you have seen so many experiences and models of how to drive home economic development worldwide. If you were to share with my audience one key experience that will entice especially the startuppers community, what will you say?
I think the global economy has had some significant problems recently, some shocks. In the UK, certainly, we were dealing with coming out of the EU, Brexit. Then we had the global pandemic as well on top of that. And then we had the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the spike in energy prices. Those three issues taken individually are shock enough. Collectively, they presented a shock to the British economy, which we certainly haven't seen since the aftermath of the Second World War. And it's amazing that the British economy is, I think, being as robust as it is. But, you know, as a result of which we've incurred significant debt. And I think that's a global issue, indebtedness. I think for me, looking back over my lifetime, the most exciting fiscal levers ever applied, certainly in the UK, were by the incoming government of Margaret Thatcher. in 1979, if you're too young to remember, but the UK was called the sick man of Europe. We had tremendous strikes. We had rubbish piling up on the streets.
Of course, I learned Thatcherism in school.
Well, exactly. We even had, bodies not being buried because everyone was on strike. It was a terrible, terrible time, and the morale
and the famous give back our money. From the European Union.
No, that was a bit later. But anyway, so the country was really on its knees. It was not in a good place. And Margaret Thatcher came in with very strong sort of liberal economic liberal economic Manchester ideology, really, as we call it. And she wanted to turn back the involvement of the state, convince people that the state was not there to do everything. The individual was more important than the state.
Privatization.
And then she started privatisation and or selling off council houses, which enabled many generations of people to own their own houses for the first time and therefore have a stake in society. Get rid of a lot of the uncompetitive industries, which was extremely painful at the time because we were uncompetitive. So the coal industry radically changed. And by 1982, we had major unemployment, and everyone thought the Thatcher experience was a disaster, but she kept going, won the election in '83, and the British economy was turned around by this during the 1980s and became a global leader. Okay. So my message is to anyone listening, at the end, government doesn't know it all. Government cannot do it all. If government chooses sectors, they invariably choose the wrong sector. It has to be the private companies, private industry, who are the generators of wealth, who take the risks, who could increase trade and investment. That's where the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council has a role.
One but last question. Your coming to Cameroon was delayed a bit because of a debate in the British House of Lords, and it has to do with the long debate of to and fro on the Rwandan bill, immigration. Why is it so problematic for the British parliamentarians to take a final decision, either a yes or no, despite the legal challenges in the courts?
Yes, it is a problem. People are uneasy about turning away people who are seeking to come and live in the UK for whatever reason. It makes people uneasy. But equally, we have to have a managed migration policy. We have to make sure that those who apply through the proper channels are processed properly, and those who try and circumvent those channels are pushed back. Otherwise, you have no migration policy at all. You say this is a problem for the United Kingdom. This is a problem for Germany. It's a problem for France. It's a problem for Italy. It's a problem for a lot of countries who are also looking now how to actually stop this massive move of people we're seeing trying to move north into Northern Europe. And it brings me back to an earlier point we made in this, we had in this discussion. And look, I understand if you live in the Sudan or in some part of Africa which is inhospitable, you are going to seek a better life for yourselves or your children, and therefore you're going to push to the cooler climates of Northern Europe. This could become a greater issue with global warming. So therefore, anyone thinking short-term or long-term has to make sure that the economies of these places, the environment in these places from which people are leaving, are sustainable enough and give them enough hope and opportunity to stay in those places. That can only be done through infrastructure investment, educational investment, health investment, to give people the opportunity to lead lives, because the majority of people actually want to stay near where they were born, near where they. That's what the majority of people want to do. But some of them have to leave those because there's no work for them, there's no hope for them. If we change that, we solve the problem.
Finally, you are here for the Investment Promotion Agency of Cameroon. She is one of your strategic partners. Probably you have seen how they have worked over the years. Are you of the opinion that they are on the right track of attracting the right investments in Cameroon?
Everybody is trying to attract investment, and there's no country in the world which doesn't want more investment. It's about creating the right conditions for those people to come to your country to invest, and I'm sure that they're doing a very good job. I spoke at a function, at an event they had at the Heads of Government meeting at the Commonwealth Business Forum in Rwanda, in Kigali, and I was delighted to do that. I'm delighted to see them all again today. I'm very supportive of what they're trying to do, and anything we can do to help them in achieve what they've set out to do, we will do.
The Deputy Chair of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council, Hugo George William the Lord Swire. Thank you very much indeed for being my guest.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.